Well, Digimon is back, again, after an absence of none whatsoever. Not that I know anything about what absences are like. I don't quite remember asking after seeing the Milk Adventure dry, but I guess the people making it have to keep the lights on somehow. Coming back to this series again after the dry and lifeless Digimon Adventure try makes me feel kind of like a battered housewife. And, like a battered housewife, all I can really do to cope with how suffocatingly awful things are is try to remember what I ever liked about this show in the first place. This all started out so simple, one of the most transparent marketing tools I've ever seen in my life. Tamagotchi is really big with girls. What if we made Tamagotchi for boys? And that's it. Hand the vague idea off to some evidently talented but clearly underfunded and understaffed animators at Toei for 13 episodes, 1 season, and you get Digimon Adventure. You hear it made money and you extend that order from 13 to a full 54 episodes, 4 seasons. By all accounts, this show should be a completely unwatchable train wreck, but it just isn't. Adversity breeds creativity, and there are no more adverse conditions than the ones those guys were working on back when they made this show. While I can't say the show is a masterpiece, and I hesitate to call the entire thing good, there is one episode of it I'll defend to the death, because it is a masterpiece on how to stretch past limitations, turn them into strengths, and most importantly, sell a feeling. Episode 21, directed by Mamoru Hosoda. Yes, that Mamoru Hosoda. So, quick recap for all the old men who have forgotten and the children who weren't alive at the time. This kid Taichi is at summer camp when he's Alice in Wonderlanded away to another world. Kind of like those isekai shows that are all the rage these days. In this fantasy world, he meets this guy, Koromon, who is his partner. The two are linked emotionally through this thing, a Digivice. When they get heated together, Koromon can get stronger and evolve into bigger and more progressively over-designed anime dinosaurs. He was also whisked away with a bunch of his friends, but thankfully none of them are relevant for what I'm going to talk about. At the end of the second story arc, Taichi wastes the bad guy so hard it literally tears open a hole in reality that spits him out back home in Japan. This is good, right? But not only is he back home, despite the literal weeks he spent trekking around in Bizarro Land, it's still the day he left for camp.
今日は8月、まだ1999年の8月1日だ!
His parents are out of town at the time, and the only person in his quaint little apartment is his eerie little sister, Hikari. This is the first really neat thing about this episode. It's how it depicts Hikari. The feeling it's trying to sell is unease, a sense that she isn't what she seems, and that you should probably remember her for later. Hikari is normally a headstrong and brave little girl, but she's currently ill, which is how they handwave away her strange demeanor. Right from the second she's introduced, there's something immediately wrong. The sound of the ticking clock in the apartment and the buzzing of cicadas that have been nearly constant outside instantly disappear.
これも、は? Hikari!
お兄ちゃん、帰ってたんだ。
The first time you even get a good look at her is in this also very unsettling zoom in. The conversation continues even more distantly, and even when Taichi gets closer, they're still not making eye contact. What all this is trying to do is make it clear. There is a difference in something between these two. A metaphorical wall is set up visually to make them feel disconnected. Hikari remembers meeting Koromon, but Taichi doesn't. Normal people shouldn't even be able to see Digimon. Now, none of this is groundbreaking, but it's effective and also not really present in the rest of the show. Despite this episode being overwhelmingly filled up with conversation between them, this tension is never resolved until the absolute very end. It keeps you just a little bit on edge, wondering when the other shoe is going to drop, because otherwise it would simply be too normal. This return back to the known is unfortunately shown to be an illusion when Taichi sees that Digimon are causing havoc around the world. It's made even more confusing when one of his mates from the other side contacts him, telling him to never return. Taichi, realizing that days could be passing by over there as minutes pass by here, is understandably troubled, made worse when he's struck by the fact that he has no idea how to get back even if he wanted to.
お兄ちゃん、スイカ食べる?
As the young boy lays on his bed, watermelon on his desk, totally powerless to go back to the digital world, another thing struck me. It really feels like summer. The blinding white light outside his window, the blaring of cicadas, this entire brief sequence.
涼 しい
All these really sell those sticky summer afternoons we've all had when we were kids, where you just feel like laying in your bed and doing nothing forever. I've always been a fan of the apartment complex he lives in too. Reminds me a lot of some apartment complexes near where I live. I understand this kind of architecture is probably unappealing to most people, but you'd be surprised how fondness can be generated when you're calling a place home. Point I'm trying to make here is this place feels lived in. It feels real. In any case, much like reality, Taichi isn't allowed to enjoy any respite. A call from his mom makes him question whether he can just stay and run from his problems. But that's when the Digimon are no longer on the other side of the world and begin attacking his neighborhood. After 16 minutes, our hero and his pink rabbit ball spring into action and are obviously unable to do anything. Thankfully, they're immediately attacked at this time. Did I say thankfully? I meant to say unfortunately. This shot of Ogremon also demonstrates the very smart use of budget in this episode. Despite looking much better than the show usually does, not that this episode looks fantastic, it's just that the show normally looks like, there's no polite way to say this, like garbage. It seems to have been made under the same financial and time constraints as any other episode. Both of these resources were just spent more wisely. Crowd shots are not easy, and they're used here to great effect. Not only do they scale Ogremon and demonstrate the stark contrast between him and the crowd, but showing normal people moving around like we've all seen adds to the sense of unease. This guy could literally kill any of these people with a flick of his wrist, and seeing those people look and behave like people is what really sells that feeling of dread and concern. There are a lot of static panning shots in this episode, and a few reused animation cuts, but that's because they needed to spend the money in the important spots. A lot of what carried those shots is the excellent performance by Taichi's voice actor, who really sells the kid who would really rather stay home than fight monsters feeling, which I'm sure we all understand. It's a very grounded and earthy performance and makes his conversations with his sister and himself feel a lot more believable and real, and there are a lot of those conversations with himself. Koromon tries to protect the two kids, but is very clearly outmatched. Under this pressure, the bond between Taichi and Koromon is finally stretched enough that Koromon can evolve into Agumon. The usual evolution theme, a really dope insert song called Braveheart, is like a breath of fresh air in the stagnant summer air. It also plays for a grand total of 33 seconds. Now, at the end, Taichi is being pulled back to the digital world. He does not want to go, but knows that he has to. Hikari also doesn't want him to go. The two again share the frame as Hikari begs him to stay, but Taichi is dragged away nonetheless. The two finally share the frame while making eye contact, and it is literally the saddest thing I have ever seen. This moment, the heart of the entire episode, is where Hosoda flexes his filmic directing muscles. The song that plays is not a stock song that shows up frequently. It's a unique piece that is used solely for this moment in this episode, and the episode is shot and animated around it. The animation cuts along the lines of the song. Taichi clenches his fist around his Digivice, certain in his resolve to help his friends, and that's when the percussion and bass of the song kick in.
やっぱあいつには俺がついてないと
The two exchange words, and as they finish, the song takes full attention at the front of the audio track.
風早く直せよ
お兄ちゃん
It continues to cut alongside the beats, but the absolute last shot of them together is intentionally played off-kilter, just to make you uncomfortable one last time. The sound of the portal above, once silent, grows louder and louder as Tai drifts further and further. He floats away, and as the sound of the portal consumes the music, it's just that until he's gone. The portal is silent again, Kari wondering if she'll ever see her brother again. The rest of the episode almost doesn't matter. The rest of the show almost doesn't matter. That 60-second sequence is literally so perfect that it blows my mind and makes me want to cry every time I see it. Taichi is sent back to the digital world. He begins looking for his friends. Hikari has her own Digivice waiting for her at home, further adding to the mystique. And that's it, end of episode. I really do admire how talented people can seemingly make something out of nothing, and this little 20-minute cartoon is one of the most shining examples of that. The limitations in this episode are very much on display, but through excellent direction and good use of what they had, they were still able to make something engaging and memorable. I don't know if this is the kind of show I'd actively recommend to people. I mean, I like it, but it's pretty long, and it's really only the second half, coincidentally, starts with this episode, where the show gets good. However, if you've got like a younger sibling, or you're just younger yourself, I guess, it's probably worth your time. And that's really all you can ask out of a cartoon, I suppose.